Charge up those batteries and plug into the future. Today, we start our new podcast series called Charged Up. We are buzzing with excitement to explore the latest and greatest electric vehicle models hitting the streets. From sleek sedans to rugged SUVs, we'll dissect each announcement, unpacking the features, performance, and driving force behind these electrifying rides. Join us as we navigate the electrifying landscape of tomorrow's transportation. For our first episode, we are going to look at budget-friendly electric vehicles, the Kia EV3, Chevy Equinox, and the Volvo EX30. Let's get charged up. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we start our new podcast series called Charged Up, where we give you information and our first impressions of recently announced concept, pre-production, or recently released electric vehicles. For this series, I will be joined by Sebastian from Kilowatt Station. How are you doing today, Sebastian?
Doing all right.
So anything new in the EV world in your life right now?
Not me personally. I've just been doing doing a weirdly large amount of driving recently, and been enjoying some good efficiency, good mileage, but otherwise nothing crazy.
Yeah, I've seen you checking out some hidden DCFC chargers. So somewhere in Arkansas,
I
somewhere.
used a Shell recharge station for the first time today and got charged a $60 pre-auth, which that's a whole different rant. But
Whoa! Is that each time or just the first time using it?
I don't know. I've only done it once, but I started it in their app. It gave me the option to use a credit card, so that's what I did. And then I got the thing for my Discover card. It's like $60 at Shell recharge. I was like, what? I put like $6 in.
What's the price per kilowatt at those things?
I don't remember. It was like 50 cents or something like that.
Jeez. Okay. Ooh. All right. So in this series, we will discuss several EVs per episode. We will have them grouped according to certain categories, so we won't be comparing a Porsche Taycan to a Chevy Bolt. Sorry there, no offense, Sebastian. No diss on your Bolt. Our goal is to let you know what automakers are bringing to the table for their EV lineup. Some of these we may see on the roads, and some will never get out of the concept stage. We will also provide you with our opinions on these new vehicles, which you may or may not agree with, which is perfectly fine because we are big boys and we can handle it. We're going to call our first group of EVs that we're going to look at today the Electro Thrift Fleet. So all these cars in this category will be budget friendly and won't break your wallet or bank account, hopefully. Today we will be looking at the Kia EV3, the Volvo EX30, and the Chevy Equinox. Sebastian, you have anything to add before we get started?
No, not really. I'm just excited to, do this, go through all the different categories of vehicles.
Yeah, so this will be happening over several weeks and months, and we'll have different categories. But today is the Electro Thrift Fleet. So before we dive into our first impressions and opinions, I'm going to give you some basic info about each electric vehicle for comparison's sake. We are going to start with the Kia EV3. So the Kia EV3 is a compact electric SUV positioned as the entry-level model in Kia's EV lineup, following the release of the EV6 and the EV9. Looking at it, its design is inspired by the EV9 and features a bold, modern look with advanced technology and sustainable materials. The EV3 is built on Kia's eGMP platform and offers two battery options, a 58.3 kilowatt battery for a standard model and an 81.4 kilowatt battery for a long-range model. Both variants are powered by a 150 kilowatt electric motor, providing 204 horsepower. The EV3 can accelerate from 0 to 60 in a whopping 7.5 seconds and has a top speed of 105 miles per hour. The long-range version offers an estimated range of up to 320 miles. The battery can be charged from 10 to 80% in about 31 minutes using DC fast charging. The EV3 features over-the-air software updates, an AI-powered voice assistant, an app store with downloadable themes, and in-car entertainment options such as arcade games and video streaming services. It also supports vehicle-to-load technology, allowing users to power external devices using the car's battery. The Kia EV3 is expected to launch in South Korea in July 2024, followed by Europe later in the year, and in Australia in 2025. We do know it's coming to the US, but we don't have a release date. All right, Sebastian, your thoughts on the EV3?
Yeah, so you touched on most of the kind of speeds and feeds that I was kind of thinking about. I think it's really interesting that it's going to be front wheel drive only, at least at this time. They won't do an all wheel drive model, which is fine, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a little weird. Especially because some of the other two vehicles that we're talking about today, those will both have an available all wheel drive model. And it's important to note Kia hasn't told us anything about like how the trim level breaks down by versus large battery versus small battery. So that whole possibly starting at $30,000 for the small battery, how much do you have to actually spend to get that big battery? And they've not given us any sort of range figure or anything on the smaller battery. Also, I think it's really interesting that this is a eGMP car, so it's shared with the Ioniq 5, the EV6, the EV9, but it only is a 400 volt pack instead of an 800 volt pack, which probably helps, and that's probably why the car only charges. I think the peak speed is 128 kilowatt, and they say 10 to 80% in 30 minutes, but they don't specify which battery pack that number is. So is it 10 to 80% in 30 minutes for the small battery? Because if so, then that means if you get the large battery car, is it going to then take 40 minutes, 45 minutes to charge? There's a lot of unknown questions there, but I guess there's still time for Kia to kind of iron out and answer some of that.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Kia. So we own a Kia EV6, and there's things I love about it. It's a quiet, comfortable ride, built great. Kia makes really cool-looking cars. I mean, even their gas-powered cars are really cool-looking cars. What I'm worried about, which I hope they improved on here because I'm reading App Store with downloadable themes, in-car entertainment, arcade games, is their software. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty trash. I mean, I do not like their software. I mean, looking at it in the display, it looks old. It looks archaic. It's not very user-friendly. I'm hoping that with the EV3 that they're going to upgrade that that software. It does say over the year. I think you can do over the year updates, but the over the year updates for Kia are weird. For my EV6, you had to be driving the car to get the update, and the update only worked when you were driving the car. You had to turn it on and drive it, and then it updated, and then you shut the car off. It paused. You turn it on. So it took I think honestly 4 days to do an over-the-air update because my wife doesn't drive that much. So I'm hoping they fix that with this because I'm used to, opening my phone and just doing over-the-air updates. You were right. I do agree about that, about the 400 volt system. I like to see that peak or that curve. I mean, if it's going to hold at 150 and just zoom it out, I think that's going to be awesome, or 120 or 150, whatever it is, and smooth it out and keep it out. That's great. Or is it going to peak and come down? I'm assuming 0 to 60 in 31 minutes with going only 128 kilowatts. It's going to keep it up pretty high and not come back down.
Right.
So that's the only issue I have with Kia is their software. They make great cars. I'm really curious, what this is going to look like if they can keep it at that 30,000 range, or is it going to keep creep up to 37, 38, 40. But yeah, it looks cool. It has those those tiger face eyes in the front like the EV9. So I'm kind of excited about it. So
yeah, and you mentioned on the software thing, I'm a little worried Kia is focusing a little bit on the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the whole downloadable theme stuff. It's like, is that necessary? Mm-hmm. Is that where they should be focusing kind of, software development efforts into? Because when you're looking at the website, they're talking about like you'll be able to purchase themes for your favorite NBA team.
Yeah.
Like, do we need that in a car infotainment system? Or on the EV9, that was the whole, you could purchase for like $300 different lighting patterns for your for the like LED pixel lights on the front. Like, why is that a feature? Why do we need that?
Yeah, I think the software just needs to be more intuitive. I mean, my Kia EV6 still doesn't have navigate to supercharger. Like when I put in from here to go anywhere, it does not go to a supercharger. I got to set the supercharger location in there, which is, I think we should be past that point now with a lot of these vehicles, especially from Kia, who seems to be, one of the leaders in electric vehicles. I mean, I think I read that 10% of their sales last month in America were electric vehicles, which is pretty good. I mean, that's right up there with, competing with, some of the big players in the game. But I think with their software, they gotta make it more user friendly. It's not very quick. It's very, it's several menus deep, changing the time or the bass on the radio. Is it under settings or is it under sound? Is it under audio? Which one is it? I never remember which one to go to. So I usually have to just guess. So yeah, so
Yeah,
hopefully they start
that's
focusing on the
another
right things with software. Yeah.
right. And the software is huge, especially when you look at like the two competitors we're talking about here that are both using
Hmm.
a Google Automotive system. But we'll talk about that more later.
Gotcha. All right, so we are going to move on to the Volvo EX30, where if you put it kind of right beside the Kia EV3, and they kind of look very similar. So the 2024 Volvo EX30 is a compact electric SUV designed to offer a blend of performance, efficiency, and modern technology. Comes in 3 trim levels: Core, Plus, and Ultra, with options for either single motor, wheel-wheel drive, or dual motor, all-wheel drive. The single motor is going to get you 268 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds, with a range of 275 miles. The dual motor is going to give you 422 horsepower, with a quicker 0 to 60 time in 3.4 seconds, which is kind of impressive. But the range goes down to 265 miles. Interesting enough, same battery size in both models, a 69 kilowatt battery, supporting DC fast charging from 10 to 80% in 26.5 minutes. So they're very precise about that. The interior design, it's going to be simple, sustainable, and once again, using those recyclable materials, kind of like Kia is, with a minimalistic layout. So they're kind of going with the Tesla look. You're going to have the main control interface, which is a 12.3-inch vertical touchscreen, which has everything on it, no gauge cluster. You got one screen. The EX30 supports Apple CarPlay, but not Android Audio yet, which is odd because they're using Google's interface. So I thought that was kind of odd. All right, Sebastian, what about this EX30? What do you like? What don't you like?
So I agree. It's weird that they don't do Android Auto. That said, because it's the Android Automotive OS, it does support things like the Play Store, so you can just install your apps directly to the head unit. So, you just install Spotify and log in. Of course, I'm sure that will require some form of subscription for the data, and that's probably why they're doing it, so that they can get that kind of recurring revenue stream from you. EX30, they say right now it's starting at around 35,000. Of course, that doesn't mean anything because it's not actually on sale in the US yet. And we've seen time and time again, they'll say the super low number, and then when they start selling it, it's 40 grand, 45 grand. But they quote the 26.5 minute 10 to 80%, but actually it seems real world fast. This is all based on European cars, but they're the same battery pack, so I would expect that they should be the same on the US spec cars. Fastned, which is a CPO in Europe, when they tested, they got 158 kilowatts peak speed on one, and the charging curve was very it makes a lot of sense. It's very programmatic. It gets to, 30% and then steps down a little bit, and then 50% and it stair steps down. So it doesn't hold for super long like we want to see. But it's not if there's no dramatic, you get to 50% and it falls off a cliff deal.
Gotcha.
But in their testing, it actually did 10 to 80% in 25 minutes. So
cut off a minute
so it actually did a little bit better than Volvo said. And that car has a 48 amp onboard charger as well for level 2 charging. The EX30 also I don't know if it's standard. This is, again, since it's not officially for sale in the US, there's not real breakdown of what you actually get for each trim level, but it is available at least to get the full suite of the driver's assistance tech, which of course it's a Volvo. Their safety's their whole thing, which it's probably good enough, but I don't know that people have been super impressed with the Volvo Pilot Plus system, especially compared to a lot of newer systems. But we can't really evaluate it because it's not for sale yet, or at least not here.
Yep. So I am curious, will they make these in South Carolina with the other Volvos when they come on sale? Because I know the what's the other Volvo they have? What's the other model that just rolled off? It's slipping my mind right now. The big one.
The EX90.
CX90. So I know they just started producing those in their South Carolina plant. So those, I guess, will qualify for maybe some or all of the $7,500 tax credit. So I'll be curious if they start building them. Yeah, I'm assuming that when they come to the U.S. with this, that it will be built over here.
Right.
But yeah, I like this. I like the simplicity design. From what I've heard, it's a lot smaller looking than what it looks like in the picture from what I'm hearing from reviews from people over in Europe. You look at it, you're like, oh, that looks pretty roomy, but you get into it and you're like, it's kind of tiny. So, but for this price range, these are going to be smaller cars. I'm a big fan of the 12.3-inch vertical touchscreen. I like that. I'm just used to it with my Tesla. You don't have to worry about the gauge cluster or anything like that, anything else. You get that clear line of sight. I haven't heard anything about, heads up display on these. I'm assuming no, because
Yeah,
they
I'm
have
not
that
sure.
simplicity of that front area. They have the one sound bar that goes across, so there's no other speakers in the car except for the one sound bar. I'm curious
Right.
how that's going to sound with road noise and things like that, with people in the back seat, with just having that one speaker sound bar. Is it going to be real loud up front? Is it going to be quiet in the back? I'll be curious with that. I have heard instances where the software has been very glitchy, which I guess is going to be, normal for a car that's just coming out, but it's Google. It will get updated, so you don't have to worry about that. It does surprise me, the Apple CarPlay wirelessly and Android Auto not. I guess that's something they are still working on. But yeah, I mean, this car looks pretty cool. I mean, I kind of like the Volvo design. You look very Scandinavian, very, IKEA looking, just the one screen, the clean gray colors, the kind of like the straight lines and things like that. So kind of
And
am
they're doing
excited about this one. Yep.
and they're doing all, recycled materials,
Mm-hmm.
leather-free interior, the whole thing, very eco-minded kind of style interior.
Is that new with all cars that we're seeing? Because, when I started researching a lot of these cars, I see this, eco-friendly, recycled, sustainable material. Is that the new way to go? Is that to be environmentally friendly, or is that to keep costs down? Or both?
Oh, it lost you for a second.
There you lost me for a second. There you are.
Sorry.
I'm back.
Yeah,
that's fine. Go on.
It's probably a mix of both, right? You say you're environmentally friendly because, you're making the EV, and the EVs, they say, are supposed to be better for the environment, whatever, which there's the arguments against it, for it. Well, it's not the subject of this podcast. But, so it goes in hand for marketing reasons that you would use, renewable materials. But I imagine there's probably some cost benefit to it as well.
Yep. All right. I think we have talked enough about the EX30. We'll now move on to the car that is available right now that you can buy, and that is the Chevy Equinox. So the 2024 Chevy Equinox EV, compact electric SUV that aims to offer a balance of affordability, performance, and technology. So this EV is available in front-wheel drive and in all-wheel drive configurations. The front-wheel drive variant can accelerate from 0 to 60 in around 8 seconds. So that is the slowest out of all these that we're looking at. The Equinox offers up to 319 miles of EP estimated range on the front-wheel drive version. Fast charging capabilities of up to 77 miles of range added in 10 minutes. That's an odd number to put out. With full charging taking around 9 hours on a level 2 charger. So if you plug it in at home, full charging 9 hours, which, that's standard. The interior is modern and spacious, 17.7-inch central touchscreen and 11-inch digital instrument panel. So kind of if you look at this and the Kia, the instrument panel is very similar. It's kind of the whole one screen the whole way across. Higher trims offer heated front and rear seats, heated steering wheel, and dual zone climate control. It is also built with Google's built-in UI. It has Google Maps, Google Assistant, Google Play, advanced safety features, Super Cruise, which I have never experienced, Chevrolet's hand-free driving technology available on the higher trims only. So the Equinox starts at $34.95 for the base model, but you can't get that one yet. The higher trims offering additional features capabilities start around $46, which I believe are the ones that are out right now in the U.S. All right, you're a Chevy fan. What do you think?
Yeah, so the Equinox EV is the one that I'm definitely most excited about on the list, and it's the only one you can get right now. So, like you said, the cheaper model, the 1LT, is not available yet, but they're saying it's going to start around $35,000. It's important to note that this, at least currently, is the only EV mentioned on this list that we know for sure qualifies for the whole $7,500 tax credit. But currently, the lowest trim level you can get is the 2LT, and that starts at $43,295 before tax credit. Like you mentioned, it does have front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Interestingly, so because it's the Ultium platform, the way it works in this car is the all-wheel drive is very much a front-wheel drive bias system that only really engages the rear motor under like heavy acceleration or if there's slip detected type deal. So it's interesting to me that the EPA estimated range of the all-wheel drive model is 285 miles versus at 319 miles on a front-wheel drive car, because in theory, the rear motor is not doing anything for most of the time. So unless it's just from all, additional weight, surely that wouldn't cause, a 40 mile or 30 mile drop in range. The Equinox, since it is an Ultium platform, you've got the 12 module battery, 10 module battery. It's all Kyle Connor from Outer Spec had a really good quote about Ultium saying it was like Mexican food. It's all the same ingredients, but arranged differently.
Mm-hmm.
But so you get on the Equinox, so you get every trim level comes with the 85 kilowatt hour battery pack, which I believe it's the biggest battery pack of all the 3 cars we mentioned. And they're estimating 158 kilowatt DC fast charging peak. We don't know a curve yet. It's not been tested that I know of, or at least not published anywhere. This vehicle also has a 48 amp onboard charger for level 2, which gets to that 9-hour figure. And at least we don't know what the options are available on the 1LT yet. GM's not telling us. So that might be a make or break thing, but at least the 2LT comes standard with all of the safety stuff, and then you can add on Super Cruise. So it comes standard with adaptive cruise, lane keep, 360 camera, all of that. Super Cruise seems to work pretty well, but it's limited to pre-mapped highways, which good and bad.
Yep.
But it does do lane changing. It will modulate speed based on when it changes the speed limits, whatnot. So the Equinox also, I believe, might be the biggest vehicle on this list, which
I believe you're
is
right,
important to note since they're all in around the same price range. The Equinox looks like it has the biggest battery standard, especially if it's when it starts at 35 grand. It might be the best bang for the buck. The only real kind of downside to it is in the front wheel drive model is it's slow. It's it doesn't have that.
Yep.
It doesn't have that electric feel, from what I understand. So anyway.
So I think this is huge. I think Chevy needed this. I mean, all the issues they had with the Ultium platform, rolling out the Blazer, and their first car was a $125,000 truck. I think that compared with the Bolt, and the Bolt was selling really well. I mean, the Bolt was a smart vehicle for them, and it was still selling really well before they pulled it to kind of redesign it. I think this is big. I mean, because Chevy is a kind of name, when you're talking about, if you're a car buyer, you're thinking, what do I want to buy? People trust buying a Chevy maybe more than buying a Volvo or a Kia, and also depends on where you live in the country. You just trust more buying a Chevy. I really hope that the charging curve is really good on this, especially because if this is meant to be a road tripper, you don't want to be at a supercharger station for, 30, 40, 50 minutes charging this up. So that's where I hope that this does have a relatively good charging curve and can get you in and out in about 30 minutes.
Which I worry a little bit about the charging curve, just because what was the record they advertised 77 miles in 10 minutes.
Yes,
that's just such a weird metric to because it doesn't tell you what percent were you at when you plugged in, because we all know it's going to taper at some point. So are you adding 77 miles in 10 minutes if you plug in dead? Is that if you plug in at 50%? So yeah, I'm a little nervous that the curve won't be great, and that's why they're not talking about it yet. But we'll see.
Maybe that's something they're hoping to improve on with software updates and things like that. So you are familiar with Chevy software. How is that? How do you like it?
Yeah, so this is using the new Android Automotive system. That is the earliest version was in the Hummer EV, and then they've improved it since then. It's the same system they're putting in the Silverado, the Blazer, the Optic will use it, the Lyric uses it. They're using it in everything now. It's Android Automotive, so it's got there's no Apple CarPlay in Android Auto. That's a GM decision that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people don't care. Some people it's make or break. But with the Android Auto, what I've seen of it so far, it seems to be pretty good. I think early on it had some issues like any software does. Whether or not now, we can't forgive it, because you could very easily argue that it shouldn't have made it in customers' hands in the state that it was.
Yes.
But it seems like now it is in a pretty good space. And so you get Play Store, it does the built-in Google Maps that's actually tied into your account, and then to your personal Google account. So like when you look up something on your phone, it'll come up on the car type deal. It does the automatic route planning with Google Maps, which is, excellent. And it seems like it does a pretty good job. It doesn't seem to really do the whole try to get you at a charger at 50% for some reason and then make you sit there for 45 minutes. It seems to be pretty smart in how it gets you to chargers. And I believe I saw that's also customizable. So you can kind of set that limit, I want to get to a charger at 10%. I don't ever want to get to a charger at 50%. That might be wrong, but I want to say I remember seeing that. Yeah, it seems like it's come a long way though. It's definitely still probably got some glitches. I've heard mention of random things, just like why does it behave like that? But
Awesome. All right. So yeah. So anything else you need to add before we kind of wrap this up for the day? So we kind of give you some great reviews on three good cars. These are all kind of eco-friendly cars, ones that you can find, mid 30s to mid 40s. All of them have their pros and cons, depending on what model that you prefer. So any last thoughts before we wrap up here, Sebastian?
no, I mean, like I agree with you. I think these are all three should be really good choices. The Equinox is the only one that's actually available right now and has some that's available in the U.S. And it so far has some pretty darn good reviews from other people as well. The EX30, when it launched, like you mentioned earlier, it had some definite bugs and quirks that were noticed in the European market, and we'll have to just see how those have resolved once it comes on sale in the U.S. And then the EX3, or EV3, sorry, we don't really know anything about the actual car yet. We just know what Kia's told us. But hopefully they're all three still excellent by the time the other two launch, and we'll just have three good kind of budget-minded cars. And I'm real hopeful that with the Equinox seeming to launch as well as it has, that the new Bolt will be good.
Yes, that is soon to come too. All right, so thank you all for joining us today. And once again, thank you, Sebastian. You can find him on X at Kilowatt Station. Go over and give him a follow. Before you leave, make sure you subscribe to the EV Geek Podcast YouTube channel to be notified when new content drops. As always, we love to read your comments on all of our videos. You can also find us on Patreon at patreon.com/EVGeek. Please consider becoming a paid member to help support and grow this podcast. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again on our next episode. So long, everyone.